We've made it, people. We have made it. We have reached the finish line of the 2021 NFL Draft pre-draft process. Pro days are essentially a wrap. I believe that everybody who matters, every potential fantasy asset that we could draft has already had their pro day. They've been tested, they've been probed and prodded and measured or not, but they've had their pro day, and we can move on to the actual 2021 NFL Draft that will take place in a matter of weeks. And if you're feeling any type of way or that similar to how I'm feeling, you can't be happier that this is over. This has been a long, exhausting process full of question marks and unprecedented things from a very long college football season that was long and short at the same time, if that makes sense. You know, I got to fix my strings. Strings are not right. Long and short, if you guys get my drift. We saw players opt out. We saw players opt out, then opt in, then opt out. And then that carried forward to the Senior Bowl and to Pro Day. And the most recent Pro Days that we kind of saw and that mattered for us in fantasy football were the LSU Pro Day, the Florida Pro Day, the Alabama Pro Day, most notably. And at each of those Pro Days, we saw players who were going to be drafted very, very, very early in the 2021 NFL Draft. And I think the player at the top of everybody's sort of, mouths right now, Ja'Marr Chase, and the crazy times that were posted, not just at LSU's Pro Day, but across the board. I mean, normally we have the NFL Combine, and that's sort of the level playing field for athletic measurable testing. And we didn't have that, of course. So some guys were working out at the school, some guys working out at performance facilities, but times were very fast. Everybody ran 4.3, 4.4. You saw very few 4.5s, 4.6s, very few of those. Everybody was blazing. Some sites, they adjust for pro day time. Some don't. Some just take it at face value. This is what these players ran. Ja'Marr Chase and Terrace Marshall both ran 4.3 40-yard dash times. Kyle Pitts, the tight end out of Florida, he ran a 4.4 40-yard dash time. We did not see Najee Harris nor Devontae Smith test. Rashad Bateman ran fast. He was a 4.3 4.4 runner, measured in a little bit smaller than we expected. And Ja'Marr Chase, from a weight standpoint, measured in a little bit smaller than even I expected, especially looking at some of the pictures that he had posted throughout this process leading up to Pro Day. However, who cares, man? I mean, we saw what he was able to do on the field in 2019 amongst a team full of talented pass catchers, which included Justin Jefferson, Terrace Marshall himself, Thaddeus Moss, Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Ja'Marr Chase showed that he was the most dominant wide receiver in college football. So, honestly, I don't really care what he tested at. I did not expect 4.3 level of explosion. I mean, and it was backed up by his broad jump and his 40-yard dash time. So, any questions about Ja'Marr Chase and his athletic ability should be silenced. As well as Kyle Pitts. I know I tweeted a video out a couple of weeks ago about Kyle Pitts, and, it was a video of him running a 40-yard dash, a 4.46, and people said, oh, he looks slow, he's slow-footed, there's no way that's a 4.6, and by golly, a 4.4, and by golly, he comes in at the Florida Pro Day and runs a 4.4, so, I'm just the messenger, don't shoot the messenger. But Kyle Pitts is just an athletic freak, we knew that, the longest or the widest wingspan ever measured, period, like ever, I believe. I still don't think he's the freakiest tight end prospect that we've ever seen, because there was a guy by the name of Vernon Davis who was drafted out of Maryland, who was a 4.3, 30-plus reps on the bench press, ridiculous three-cone times, 40-yard dash, I just said 4.3, vertical jump, short shuttle, everything. He was just probably the most athletic tight end that we've ever seen was Vernon Davis, but Kyle Pitts is right there, and he's going to be a high-end fantasy asset for us in seasonal leagues as well as dynasty leagues. I'm in a current Dynasty startup now, and I believe he was the second tight end drafted. I think it was Travis Kelce and then Kyle Pitts. So, there are people who have him rated very, very high. For me personally, he's my tight end 4 in Dynasty. The only tight ends that I'd want over him are Travis Kelce, George Kittle, and Darren Waller. And, Darren Waller's getting up there in age, so I wouldn't even be upset if anybody put Kyle Pitts ahead of Darren Waller. But back to some of these pro day times, we saw a running back out of Louisiana, Elijah Mitchell, who I've talked about a ton, go out there and absolutely crush it, running a 4.3, dropping 15 pounds from his playing weight, being explosive, being fast. For me, of all the players throughout this entire draft process, he's been my biggest riser. He has risen up my board more than anybody else because I love the tape, and I've been on multiple shows, Fantasy Pros, Roto Underworld, tons of shows. For months, I've been saying that Elijah Mitchell would be my version of James Robinson in this 2021 running back class, which, man, the class overall does not look very good. I mean, I think it's Najee Harris and then a major gap between Harris, ETN, Javonte Williams, Kenneth Gainwell, Elijah Mitchell. Chuba Hubbard goes out there. I'm thinking he's a 4.3 guy. He runs a 4.5. Jamar Jefferson does not, test extremely well. But, the tape, what he did his freshman season is there. Javonte Williams didn't test exceptionally well. Travis Etienne didn't test exceptionally well. It's been a weird season of expectations and then players not meeting those expectations. And then what do? Well, luckily for me and for all of you listening to the show, I base like 90% of my ranking evaluations on what I see on film. Tape, I just trust the game. I trust what I see on tape. I trust what I see on film. So thankfully, a lot of the testing numbers really don't matter. I like to see them for confirmation. Like, I told you he's fast. Yeah, now he proved it. Or I told you he was athletic and agile, and he went out there and had an extremely fast short shuttle time. So I use a lot of that to sort of shore up what I saw on film. I'm more concerned with, like, size, right? How big is that running back? Was Kenneth Gainwell able to gain such and such weight, pounds? Did Ramondre Stevenson actually come in at 247 pounds, or did he drop weight? Like, I like to see those things. Rondale Moore, how tall is he actually? Is he 5'9"? We found out he was 5'7". We're seeing that across the board. Rashad Bateman, we thought he was 210, 215. He comes in at 190 and says he's never weighed over 200 pounds in his playing career. So why he was listed like that at Minnesota, I have no clue. But this is where you just have to trust what you saw. And I think that's what's going to happen when the NFL draft takes place, is these coaches, these GMs, are going to really rely heavily on their scouting departments, on what they feel are going to be talented players, the players that are going to help them win football games. And I really want to clarify and break down a key distinction that I think a lot of fantasy gamers are missing. A lot of fantasy gamers, especially when it comes to what the San Francisco 49ers traded to move up to number 3. I think a lot of people are missing the point. A lot of people are missing the point. And let me explain this the best way that I can, at least how it makes sense to me. So we all know, for all intents and purposes, that the Jaguars are going to draft Trevor Lawrence and the New York Jets are going to take Zach Wilson. I think that's a personal mistake, but I'm not in the front office. If I'm sitting at 2, Penny Sewell would be my selection. I'm not letting that left tackle pass me. They've got multiple draft picks. I would try to trade up and grab another quarterback, but I'm not passing on Sewell. Sewell and Mekhi Becton, that's a hell of a bookends for your tackles for the foreseeable future. You can start Sewell at right tackle, or you can put him at left tackle and move Becton over to right tackle. Either way, shore up that offensive front. Give Sam Darnold some weapons. They brought in Corey Davis, draft him some weapons, give him a chance. That's just what I would do, but neither here nor there. Trevor Lawrence to the Jacksonville Jaguars, Zach Wilson to the New York Jets. Now, the San Francisco 49ers sit at pick 3, and they traded up from 12 to 3 and gave up significant draft capital to move up. You don't make that move unless you're taking a quarterback, so we don't even have to debate. They're not going wide receiver. There's no Chase Young in this class. There's no They're taking a quarterback. Now, two sides of this coin. You have the 49ers fandom who wants Justin Fields or Trey Lance or, one of these Konami code quarterbacks. This is what they want. The fans, they want to see Justin Fields in a 49ers uniform. And that very well may happen, but there has been like zero smoke outside of some pictures of Kyle Shanahan working with Justin Fields at a passing camp. There's been like zero smoke around Justin Fields to San Francisco. So for me, in the way that I view it, there's a ton of smoke around Mac Jones and some smoke around Trey Lance. I think it's going to be one of those two quarterbacks. Now, for most, they would prefer to see Trey Lance under center for the San Francisco 49ers. And I asked myself, why? Why are people so enamored with an FCS quarterback who played one season of FCS college football opposed to a national champion quarterback who produced when the potential greatest quarterback in Alabama history went down, produced in that season? Then he comes back in his junior season when he wasn't even supposed to start, right? Bryce Young was going to take over. Mac Jones wasn't going to get to play. Not only does he play, he plays a perfect season, like Joe Burrow-esque type season in fewer games. Absolutely destroys college football, sets the NCAA completion percentage record and the QBR record held by Joe Burrow and completion percentage, I believe, was Colt McCoy back in 2008. So Mac Jones breaks those records, throws for 40 touchdowns, 4,500 yards, little interceptions, like 4 or 5 interceptions, if that. But they don't even want Mac Jones, right? No, give me Trey Lance. And I sit back and ask myself, well, why is that? And one, it's this idea that mobile quarterbacks are the new wave of the NFL. If you can't run, you can't play quarterback. That all sounds fine and dandy until the season starts, until your team gets in a situation where you need your quarterback to make a throw, and it doesn't happen. We saw that this past year when Lamar Jackson threw that pick six versus Buffalo. I mean, the buzzards came out of the woods to just eviscerate Lamar Jackson and how poor he throws the ball. Jalen Hurts starts 4 games as a backup rookie quarterback, right? Wasn't even supposed to play. Second-round pick, Carson Wentz gets benched. Last 4 games, here comes Jalen Hurts. Had some great moments, had some rookie moments. But Eagles fans were ready to cast him off, get him out of the paint before next season starts. Josh Allen, prior to this past season, sucked. Josh Allen stinks, completion percentage. Yuck, get us a quarterback that can throw the ball. You've got some outliers. Desean Watson, pretty good, running the ball and one of the best passers in the NFL. And we ain't going to dive into the Desean Watson saga today. We're just talking about him as a quarterback. Then you have Russell Wilson, who, is a good scrambling quarterback. Patrick Mahomes can scramble. But by and large, the overwhelming thought that the only quarterbacks that can be successful are mobile quarterbacks or rushing. Let's say that, because there's a difference between being mobile and there's a difference between being a rushing quarterback, a rushing type quarterback, which Trey Lance is. He's 6'4", 225. He's got a cannon attached to his shoulder. He can make all the throws. I love Trey Lance. He's rated very, very highly for me in my 2021 quarterback rankings on Patreon, patreon.com/allgas. But that's not the only way that you can win, man. That's not the only way that you can win in fantasy or in the NFL. And let me assure you, this should be common sense 101. NFL franchises aren't playing fucking fantasy football, all right? They're trying to win. They need someone that's going to be able to deliver the ball when necessary, 2-minute offense, drive the ball down the field, make accurate throws, push the ball downfield, and Mac Jones can do that. Mac Jones can do that. You may not want to admit it. You may want to close your eyes, and you don't like the physical physique of Mac Jones. You don't like the fact that he wasn't a 5-star prospect. You don't like the fact that you just want somebody else. Mac Jones can be He has the potential to be a very, very good NFL quarterback. Is his fantasy ceiling capped because he can't run the ball for 800 yards a season, for 600 yards a season? Sure. Yes, I'm not going to debate that. When you have a quarterback who's locked in at least 400 yards, that's a big advantage. That's a big advantage. But most of us who participate in super flex leagues, 12-team leagues, 14-team leagues, how many of those guys are around? How many of those guys give you that type of rushing upside week in and week out? You got Lamar, you got Kyler. We didn't see Justin Herbert run around a lot, but we know he can. Joe Burrow probably doesn't need to run around a lot. You got, Desean Watson and Hurts, Josh Allen, I'm just off the top of my head, Russell Wilson. That's 8 guys, all right? There's plenty of quarterbacks who stand and deliver from the pocket that are valuable fantasy assets. And regardless of how you personally feel about a player, I'll just say this. The NFL's opinion of a player is worth more than every single fantasy analyst on Twitter, on YouTube, on podcasts combined. If Mac Jones is selected at number 3 to San Francisco and you pass on him because you didn't like the pick, because you wouldn't have done it, because you would have taken Trey Lance, because you would have taken Justin Fields, it doesn't fucking matter what you think. Just like The Rock says, it doesn't matter. All that matters is what the NFL thinks of these players. And that just doesn't go for the quarterback position. That goes for wide receivers, tight ends, running backs. If you choose to pass, then that's fine. But if Mac Jones is drafted number 3 overall to San Francisco, you better bet your bottom dollar he's going to get every opportunity to be the guy and to be successful, and that they're going to do things around him to surround him with pieces to be successful, to thrive, to operate that offense efficiently. That's what they're going to do. That's what they're going to do. So stop sitting. I just see so much bad analysis centered around what you would do. Well, you know what? Why don't you go apply for the job at San Francisco to be the GM, and then once you become the GM, you can draft whoever you want. But until then, until that happens, fading Mac Jones because you didn't like what the San Francisco 49ers gave up to acquire that pick, because you don't think they should have traded up to number 3 for Mac Jones. If they trade up to 3 for Mac Jones or Trey Lance or whomever it is, it's because they believe that we have to get this guy here or else we may not get him. Listen, I'm not going to sit here and act like I know what the hell is going on behind closed doors. I am just reacting to the information that we have, not some conspiracy theorist on Twitter who has as little a clue as I do about why they did or did not make a move. If Jones is drafted to San Francisco, this is what's going to happen. Brandon Ayuk, Deebo Samuel, George Kittle, and whoever hell else they bring in, stock up for those players. Because unlike a Trey Lance or a Justin Fields, you don't have to worry about your quarterback taking 100 carries a season away from a running back, or in passing situations scrambling and pulling targets away from your wide receivers. If anything, you should be excited if you are a manager that has Ayuk and Deebo and Kittle and potentially these running backs, whichever running backs are there, Jeff Wilson, Raheem Mostert, Jerick McKinnon. You should be happy because you've got a quarterback who's not going to run the ball, who's going to stand and deliver the ball accurately and work within the confines of the offense to produce. And he's a good quarterback. He may not have the ceiling of a Zach Wilson. He may not have the ceiling of a Trey Lance. He may not have a ceiling of a Justin Fields. But I'm so sick of seeing people talk about what they wouldn't have given up. It doesn't matter what you would have done. Are you playing the game or are you not playing the game? If you don't want to draft Mac Jones, and I'm not even telling you if they take him at the 3 spot, you need to take Mac Jones in the top 5. I'm not saying that. I just said he should be a first-round pick in super flex leagues. And if I'm sitting at the 110 spot, and if I'm being real with you, the only skill position players that I am just 100% locked and loaded, sold on, the only ones are Najee Harris, Jamar Chase, Devonta Smith, and Kyle Pitts. That's it. Those are the 4 skill position players I'm like, no matter what, I don't care where they go, don't care. Drafting them. Want them. 4 great ones. Trevor Lawrence, Justin Fields, Trey Lance. I'm at 7. So if I'm sitting at the 108, 109, and Mac Jones is there and I need a quarterback, I have no problem pulling the trigger. Because I'm not 100% confident that Javonte Williams is going to be some long-term starter. I've got my questions on ETN. Rondale Moore, I love him. He's 5'7". I want to know where he lands, how they're going to use him. Love Waddle and Bateman and Kenneth Gainwell. You know, if anything, I have a little more conviction in Kenny Gainwell than I do Williams and ETN, because I know at worst case scenario, Kenny Gainwell can just be James White. He's the best receiving back in this class. He could just be James White at worst. So this is my last gasp effort to try to not even convince anybody. Just have you think about it in a different light. Stop talking about what you would do if you were the organization. I mean, you can talk about it, but stop giving advice based on what you would have done, because it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. If I'm the Bengals and Penny Sewell is sitting there at 5, I'm taking him. I'm not drafting Jamar Chase. I'm not. But if they do that, I'm not going to not draft Jamar Chase just because I would have taken Penny Sewell. That just sounds, it's ridiculous logic. And again, before you come commenting, and I understand how good rushing quarterbacks can help you win in fantasy. I understand that. There is data that backs that up. If you can run the ball 50-something yards a game and throw for 200-300 yards, you're going to score more. Like, I get it. But in super flex formats, in 2 QB leagues, that's the majority of Dynasty League setups. Those QB2s matter. Those QB3s matter. You need those guys. And a player like Jones, if he gets that draft capital, he's not falling outside the top 15 at worst. And I'm being conservative. That's the Patriots. He's got to get past the Panthers. He's got to get past the Broncos. He's got to get past the Lions, Falcons. I mean, yeah, I don't see him falling that far, or a team trades up for him. And to that note, the add to this, I have to heed to that same advice that I'm giving out. I saw a mock draft, and I apologize. Whoever, if I could even, I'm going to find it and retweet it and say I'm sorry, because CBS had a mock draft that came out January, December. It's like right after the college season, right before the playoffs, right after the NFL playoffs. But it had Kellen Mond, quarterback out of Texas A&M, being drafted, mocked to the New Orleans Saints at like pick 28. So it had to be after the NFL season. And I like retweeted it. Talk shit, said it was trash. Are you kidding me? And as time has gone on, more and more smoke about Kellen Mond and Davis Mills and Kyle Trask being dark horse day one guys at the back half of the first, the team trading back up like Baltimore did a couple of years ago to get the fifth-year option on the quarterback. There's more and more smoke around that happening. And if Kellen Mond is drafted in the first round or on day 2, round 2 pick, I will be leaving rookie drafts with Kellen Mond. Yeah. I mean, I don't think he's the greatest quarterback, but if he gets the draft capital, he's probably going to get an opportunity. And at that point, that's where the value is. Do you flip the player? Do you hold him? That's your choice, your prerogative. But I remember a couple of years ago, Daniel Jones, people not liking that the Giants drafted Daniel Jones top 5. People not liking it. People not liking the Bears drafting Mitchell Trubisky over Patrick Mahomes, Desean Watson. Big mistake. But the point is, and Daniel Jones still needs to prove himself. But because of that, Daniel Jones in my home Dynasty League fell to the third round. I think he was picked like 302. Saw Mitch Trubisky falling late second. In Superflex leagues, the moment you draft Daniel Jones in the third round of a Superflex league, you won. You've already yielded return on that investment. And if you have a starting quarterback, at some point you're gonna flip him. You're gonna trade a starting quarterback. So those people who had Daniel Jones, drafted him at cost, at value, traded him for whatever. I'd love to hear some of the things that you got for Daniel Jones, because going into last season, not this past season, but the season before, people were extremely bullish on Daniel Jones because he can move, he's mobile, and he can throw. So, I mean, you may have parlayed that into a first in 2020. You may have parlayed that into multiple future firsts or a young ascending player. If Kellen Mond gets the draft capital, you draft him at cost because people won't like him. They'll make this mistake that I'm trying to tell you not to make. And I don't like Kellen Mond. I thought New Orleans should have went Kadarius Toney, and they went Kellen Mond. Yuck, I'm not taking him. You take Kellen Mond mid-second, late second over some Trey Sermon, over Dwayne Eskridge, over Sage Surratt or some random-ass player. Like, that's a quarterback in Superflex. You've won. You've won. And the moment he steps on the field and you trade him for a first in 2023, for multiple picks, for young players, you've won. That's Dynasty, man. That's Dynasty. Stop letting what you think your GM hat affect value, because that's the name of the game. If you want to scout and just pick the best players and you want your team to get all the players you like, go do that. Don't play Dynasty fantasy football. Go do that. Don't play Dynasty, because you're not playing Dynasty. Anybody with half a brain, Mac Jones in San Francisco, good for the pass catchers, probably good for Mac Jones. And I'm not even here saying he's going to be some GOAT player. I don't think he is. I think he's a good quarterback. I think he's a solid starting quarterback in the NFL. That's what I think. If he turns into be really, really good, that will shock me and surpass my expectations, and I will even admit and say I didn't think he'd be that good. Just observations that I've seen. The name of the game is scoring points, extracting value at cost with these players. Do that, man. Stop worrying about this what I would have done shit. Because you know what, folks? Again, as the philosopher Dwayne Johnson himself says, it doesn't matter what you think. That's it, man. Make sure y'all subscribe to the channel. We'll be back this week. Consistent content. Brand new show dropping on the station tomorrow. Brand new, the Black Box Show. Super, super excited about this project. Me and my partner Jordan Richards have been working on this for months, just sort of talking about what we want this show to be. And I just want to let everybody know right now, it is not a fantasy football show. It is a sports show, life, culture, more sports, talking GOATs, talking top five, talking things that are happening in this industry, in this community, in this culture. It's a dope show, man. A dope show. So I hope you all check it out. I hope you like it. I think you will. It's a dope vibe, a dope flow, a dope feel to it. And just a little something to take your mind off of fantasy every now and then. You know, just some real life shit. We're real people, man. Like I go through a struggle with creating content, with life, with balancing this and families, and Jordan struggles in his life, relationships, mentally. Like we all have it, man. And we just want to find a way to connect with the people and give you something like a breath of fresh air from this echo chamber of Devonta Smith versus Jamar Chase or Mac Jones at 3. Like, let's talk about some other stuff inside the culture that I think will be very entertaining. So make sure you check out the Black Box Show. Follow Black Box Show on Twitter. Make sure you're locked into the station. And if you want exclusive content to me, the best damn Devi community on planet Earth. Patreon.com/all gas is where it's at, baby. But we'll see you back later this week with more content. We out of this thing. Peace.